Hello again and welcome to the second video, multiplying polynomials. In this one, we'll go beyond the basics and get into a little bit more complicated things. Our first example here. Notice it says expand and simplify. So expand meaning multiply, and then simplify meaning there's going to be lots of like terms that we can simplify, put together to make it a more precise answer. Okay, so again, everything's really comes down to monomial multiplications, and then we just have to know we have to distribute. So same rules here. I take my first term, I'm going to distribute it. I'm going to take my time and just distribute it through. So we're going to have lots of little multiplications. Not a big deal. Just take your time. So the first one, 3x times x squared. So that's really like 3x times 1, or sorry, 3 times 1, which is 3. X times x squared, that ends up being x cubed because we add our exponents, so 1 plus 2. 3x times negative 4x ends up being negative 12x squared. 3x times positive 5 plus 15x. I'm done that distribution. I move on to the next distribution. And I simply go through it one more time. Negative 4 times 1x squared will be negative 4x squared. Negative 4 times negative 4x, two negatives make a positive, 16x. Negative 4 times positive 5, negative 20. Now we'll look for some like terms. So I see that there's x squared. Highlight those guys. Looks like there's some plain old x to the first power. Highlight those guys. So now we'll combine the like terms just to clean this up so we don't have to have as many terms. So there are no x to the third powers except for this one, so I just leave it unchanged. We're going to go in decreasing degree order. So we want to go with the highest exponent on an x first and work ourselves down. So 3x cubed will come first. Next we want the squareds. So negative 12x squared minus 4x squared is negative 16. And again, we don't change the x squareds. It's x squared is the term we're dealing with. Now come the x to the first powers, just the x's. 15 plus 16. Plus 31x, and then minus 20. These types of questions can look a bunch of different ways, so I'm going to try to show you some different ones. Let's look at this example. 3d plus 2f squared. The classic thing for students to do is really distribute the squared, so they end up getting 3d squared plus 2f squared, or which unfortunately isn't right, and I'll show you why after. Another thing they'll do is just a twist on what I just did. Well, they'll go 3d whole thing squared plus 2f whole thing squared, which equals then 9d squared plus 4f squared, and it's getting closer, but it's still not right. So what do we do in this case? Well, you pay attention to your exponents and the things you know about exponents when that really means that this binomial is simply there twice. And we need to write it out twice, and then it turns into a binomial times a binomial, which we've already tackled, so this shouldn't be too hard for us. There's our 3d. We distribute it through, so I get 9d squared. See, we've seen that before. But now we get a plus 6df. When you're multiplying variables and there's a bunch of different letters around, always put things alphabetical. It's going to help you see those like terms. Because if you have two terms, one is a df, the other is an fd, technically those are still like terms, but it might be easy to look past that. Always put them alphabetical, and then your like terms will jump out at you. So we're done our first distribution. Now we need our second one. So positive 2f times 3d plus 6, and I know f comes before d in this question, but I'm going to go alphabetical, df, and then now we can see that there's those like terms, and then now plus 4f squared. Once again, like terms. So really, once they're like terms, don't even pay attention to the variable part anymore. Just pay attention to the coefficient. Add those. 6 and 6 is 12. 12 whatevers. Happens to be df, so 12 df. So I got to write my first term out, which there were no like terms with d squared, so I just leave it unchanged. Once again, 6 and 6 is 12 of whatever we're dealing with. It happens to be df's this time. And then there were no f squareds. All right, so those are two different looking examples. We'll do one more type. And again, none of this is likely hard. It's just nice to see these things because students often assume everything's hard when they change the look. So you'll get used to the way something looks, question changes, and now you're like, oh man, this must be way harder. Hopefully you're seeing that really when you're multiplying polynomials, you need to know two things: how to distribute and how to perform a monomial multiplication. And then I guess also collect like terms, and if you can do those things, you should be good. You just got to take your time. First term. So now I have a trinomial times a binomial. Nothing's going to change. So 4d squared times 6d. 4 times 6 is 24. D squared times d to the first is d to the third. 4 times negative 5 is negative 20. And there is no other d to multiply with, so the d squared remains unchanged. One more distribution, negative 18, d squared, because they're both d to the first power, and then plus 15d, two negatives make a positive. And then we have one more distribution, kind of draw that a little bit differently so it stands out. 2 times 6 is 12, and it's a positive 2 times a positive 6, so it's positive 12d, and then minus 10. Again, so that's the expanding. Simplify means collect all those like terms, so now we'll look for that. So are there any d? I see there's one d to the third power. There's not two. D squared, I see a d squared here, a d squared here. D's, I see a d and another d. Again, we want to be in decreasing degree order, so d3 has to come first, then the d squareds, then the d's, and then the coefficients without any d's. So 24 to d to the third power, minus 38, d squared, plus 27, d, minus 10. So I'm trying to make these more difficult, but hopefully you're seeing they get longer, but they're not really more difficult. Okay, so we're going to get into a slightly different style. I guess I did 3 examples, so this should be D. These ones require all the skills that we've been working on and some patience because they look really long, but I'm hopefully going to show you it's not that bad. You just got to take your time. You can't be in a hurry. Okay, so this is the beast that we're going to be looking at. So how it's different? Well, hopefully you see that there is a addition sign or an addition sign here. What that does is it breaks up the multiplication. So really we have something to multiply here. And then we have 3 things to multiply down here. So in the first grouping, it's just a binomial times a binomial. That won't be an issue. We know how to do that. In the second grouping, though, there are 3 items to be multiplied. We haven't looked at that yet. The thing with multiplication is you can multiply in whatever order you want. 2 times 3 times 6. Sorry, 2 times 3 times 4 is what I meant to say. That equals 24. If I switch the order, 3 times 2 times 4, 6 times 4 is still 24. If I can think one more order, 4, 2, oh, let's go 4, 3, 2, I guess. 12 times 2 is 24. So that'll apply over here as well. I can multiply these 3 polynomials or in whatever order I wish. It's really going to be just your choice. What's the easiest? So I do have an easiest way for you. I'm going to suggest let's multiply these 2 first. We'll multiply that together, collect our like terms, and then we'll bring that 2 in. So that's how I'm going to proceed, and I'll show you that. Okay, so in this first, I'm on this guy now. 3x squared minus 15x. So that's this. Second term, negative 3x plus 15. Okay. Plus 2. I'm not doing anything with the 2. I'm going to put a bracket in here. And I'm going to start distributing these by this term into this second binomial. So negative 18x squared plus 15x. Second term now, plus 30x minus 25. Okay, we got some like terms to collect. So I can collect here 3x squared minus 18x plus 15. Now, again, you got to leave that 2 alone, plus 2. Why? BEDMAS. You have to perform all your multiplications before you get adding something like that. So right here, we know this 2 needs to be multiplied in. So until you do the multiplication, you can't add it to something else. Bracket, and we have some like terms right here. So negative 18x squared, 15 plus 30 is plus 45x, minus 25. So I've multiplied 2 out of the 3 things. Now I can bring in my my positive 2. Now I'll distribute this through. I find this to be the easiest way for students. I see the least amount of mistakes. So that's why I want to suggest this. Technically, though, truthfully, you can do it whatever order you want. These 3 up here, these 3 parts, whatever order you want to multiply, you could, but I think this is the easiest. All right, so back to my question. I can't do anything else with this first part. I've already combined the like terms. They're just sitting there waiting for more like terms to appear. Okay, get distributing. Positive 2 times negative 18, negative 36 x squared, then plus 90x, not p90x, plus 90x, and then minus 50. Okay, we should have some like terms appearing. I want to go decreasing degree again, so the x squareds have to come first. Then I'm going to worry about the x's. And then also just the plain old numbers. So 3x squared minus 36x squared will be negative 33x squared. Negative 18 plus 90. It's easier to go. I find that to be confusing. I'm going to go 90 minus 18. So negative 18 plus 90 is the same as 90 minus 18. So 90 minus 10 is 80, minus 8 more is 72. And then the plain old numbers here, 15 minus 50, we end up getting negative 35. So lots of action there. Hopefully it didn't seem too tough. We're going to do one more of this type, and then we'll call her quits. I think it's E. I may have messed up my lettering. We're going to do one more because we're going to look at when there's a negative number. We had plus 2 in between before, but now we're going to look at having a negative number. You're going to see that, again, as long as you take your time, it's not a big deal. I'll try to work through a little bit faster because you might be thinking, man, this is taking a long time. But I don't want to work through it too fast that it's kind of useless, this video. Okay, again, we've got 2 binomials. We'll multiply that as usual. But then we have 3 things to multiply over here. I'm going to use the same technique. I'm going to leave this guy alone, and then I'm going to work with those other 2 binomials. Okay, so let's get moving here. So negative 12m squared, and then negative 8m. Distribute now this term through. Negative 3m, and then positive 1 times negative 2, negative 2. This negative 3 I haven't done anything with. I have to leave it alone. Leave it alone, work on these 2 binomials, collect their like terms, then bring the negative 3 in. So I'll distribute like this. 2m times 3m is 6m squared plus 8m. Another distribution, negative 3m minus 4. Again, I want to look for these like terms. I have some like terms on this half over here, some more like terms over here. You might be thinking, well, can I put all those together right now? You can't. Okay, now why can't you? Because there are these brackets right here. They're stopping you from putting everything together. Once we have those brackets removed, meaning once we've done that multiplication, then we're good to gather everything up. And again, I can't stress, and I didn't really talk about this before, do not collect these two. Don't do that. Why again? Because you're breaking bed mass. This 3 has to be distributed in over here before it can be added to something. So unfortunately, I might have made a bit of a mess here. I'm going to rewrite this though in a nicer form. So negative 12m squared. Now negative 11m minus 2 minus 3 bracket, and like people will put that together to make a negative 5. Then it's the wrong answer. That happens a ton, so you got to be disciplined there. 6m squared plus 5m minus 4. Okay, so now we can distribute our negative 3 in, and then we can start collecting those like terms. So in the first part, once again, we've already collected as many like terms with these guys as possible. They have to wait till we're done. Now we'll start distributing. So negative 3 times 6m squared is negative 18m squared. Then negative 15m plus 12. No more brackets, meaning I can gather all the like terms up. I have some m squareds that are alike. I have some m's that are alike. And again, we have these plain old numbers. All right. So negative 12 subtract 18. Once we have like terms, again, forget about what we're adding. It's just negative 12 minus 18. So it's negative 30 of whatever we're dealing with. So negative 30, and then what are we dealing with? Oh yeah, we're dealing with m squareds. Don't turn them into m to the 4th power. Negative 11 minus 15. Negative 26 of whatever we're dealing with. We happen to be dealing with m's. Do not turn them into m squareds. And then negative 2 plus 12 plus 10. All right, so that's all the types I wanted to show you. Hopefully this makes some sense. If it doesn't, come find me. Otherwise, have a great night, everybody.